Welcome back, guys. We're gonna start talking about topic number 2, which is being a Sprout streamer going through MSQ versus being an endgame veteran streamer going through endgame content. So my background is that I finished the game, I got fully done, and I was going to start Savage raiding, and I was like, I'm going to start streaming this. This is compelling content. I think it would be fun, and there are other people that I was watching that, were like, yeah, you should totally do that. And I got into it, and it's been a slow roll. And not that it isn't a slow roll for a lot of people, but I actively search out Sprout streams like I am hunting down a bounty that would win me life or win me money for the rest of my life. And I know that is something that other people do. I know that I am not the only one that does that. I look for super small streamers that are in Sprout mode. I generally look for cameras because I'm a flesh tuber preferred, but
sure, yeah.
But yeah.
Grooming Wraith to be aesthetic.
Totally doesn't do that. Yeah, I'm gonna call liar, Alex. I'm gonna call you a liar because I know you do.
Most of the people that are going to be in my chat do the same thing because I just went through the story again.
Honestly, I've been doing since Heaven's Word. I've been doing the same thing. Honestly,
it's good. It's so good to relive those moments. Through somebody else's eyes.
The vault is when that's the pinpoint moment when I hit the vault, because there's always the joke about how I don't cry on stream and they all want me to. Here's the thing. I have, but I think I can hide it relatively well. But the vault fucking killed me. And so I was like, I immediately after that stream, I remember I was like, I just took to Twitch and was like, who's doing the vault? Who's doing the vault? There. There you are.
Following this guy. I think the funniest moment was this morning before Wraith stream. We were both caught in the finish. I can't remember what his name was. Oh man, I feel so bad. The Swedish guy that we were watching this morning. Was it Swedish? Was he Finnish? I can't remember what he was. We were both in his chat, and it was he and his wife, I think.
And they were both playing?
Early this morning, Wraith, when we were in the same Twitch chat.
Oh, yes, Funky. Yeah.
Funky.
Shout out to Funky. Hey, Funky.
Yeah, shout out to Funky. Yeah, I'll throw one out there.
I don't know if the Benny G video would be spoilers for you, but I think you should watch that one.
Benny's good too. There's some Benny isn't he's a Sprout, he hasn't finished the story yet, but he's been doing some really cool stuff. So there's you get your regular Sprouts, right? You get the Wraiths of the Final Fantasy community who are running through the story, and people are the Wraiths, the Hexides at the time, the Moxies, Moxie was originally a Minecraft streamer and swapped over to Final Fantasy thanks to Free. And then Hexity was, I can't remember what he played before. It was some first person shooter, and then swapped over into Final Fantasy and was running through the story. But then you get people like Benny. Benny is super cool. He does stuff like he makes voiceover gameplay, so he'll use his voice to run the dungeon. And it's really cool. He has these keybinds set up on his computer that take in the commands, and so he can be like, walk forward, stop, turn to the left, turn to the right, and then he'll be like,
that's awesome.
He'll just be like, he'll say the move and he'll just do the move. He was also doing one where he wanted to do the old what made Twitch famous was the interactive Pokemon game. Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about. So he wanted to do that for Final Fantasy, where people could put in exclamation commands and do different attacks. So he was getting a healer up where he was cure 2 on player 5. He would just go to player 5 and do cure. It was really cool. He's not doing cool, yeah. He's not doing Sprout stuff, and he's a variety streamer, but he does a lot of Final Fantasy. But he's doing these weird things with other tools to kind of incorporate a better piece. Yeah, Hex also did well. Yes, that's correct. But I mean, your background is what? You played a lot of Destiny before. I know you're a big Destiny guy.
I think was a big Destiny guy.
Yeah,
so yeah,
was is always the word for Destiny.
Yeah, day one raid racing for a really long time. Every year, every expansion.
Starting when?
Which was starting with honestly, I think it was probably I started doing the day one raid racing at Leviathan with Destiny 2.
Oh.
But I watched them with like, Taken King, Dado stuff, and some of those bigger names. But the thing is like, I think as time went on, like the apathy that Bungie showed for its community kind of just like really pushed me away from any of that, because it's like, why do I even care about what's coming next? Like, I'm not hyped. Like the climactic finale of the Light and Dark saga is coming with the Final Shape expansion 2024, and I just don't give a shit. I'm past giving a shit. And so I think it was like 2 seasons ago with Destiny, I just was like, man, I've got nothing to do. I've literally done everything in the game. I put myself on the leaderboards for day one. What else do I do now? And I was like, I need to find another game is what I need to do. I need to find a huge game with a lot of stuff to do that I can really like sink into. And that I've been putting off looking at Final Fantasy XIV for such a long time, because I've been a long time Final Fantasy fan. And I was like, ooh, that's dangerous. I like, oh man, it's like an alcoholic looking at like an open bar. Like, man, there's a lot of really good stuff here, and I'm gonna definitely lose myself in this. But I decided to take the jump into it, and I've enjoyed it ever since. But it definitely comes with some, like, I'd say a lot of good stuff and some negative stuff when it comes to, especially being like a streamer that is primarily known for Final Fantasy stuff, especially.
Right.
Like, the community, really great. Some of the like community also not great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's always going to be some stuff with, like, I think MMOs in general, like big stuff in that regards.
Drama also just gets blown up, like, unnecessary. Like, there's currently some stupid drama about some tank in the most recent dungeon not doing AoEs, and there's like, I ran into like 4 or 5 YouTube videos about people talking about it, and it just came from one tweet about it.
So one of the questions that was brought up in chat was, what do you think that makes Final Fantasy from the outside either unknown to some or off-putting that there's a hesitancy to pick it up?
So that's a good question. I mean, that's a really good question. I think like a lot of the hesitancy is just like, I think with any, not even just FF14, but like any game that this size and that's been going on with such an extended history, with such a like deep fan base and committed fan base, is like, well, if I start something new like this, or say WoW, or even Destiny, it's like, I'm going to be so far behind, and I'm going to be having to like spend that grueling period of catching up and stuff like that, which I think is definitely where like a lot of the hesitancy to pick up games in general comes from, not just FF14, but like any long running live service game. You know what I mean?
I think for me, I had looked at doing 1.0 back when it first came out, and I was like super excited to get into it. Was, I think, right around the time that Guild Wars 1 was kind of petering out. There wasn't a lot of new content, and it was like looking for something new to do. I had done the WoW stuff, was unimpressed with the way that they like kind of didn't really make you into a very important person, right? I mean, it was a big like, hey, you're here, but you're not very important. And I think WoW, like the Final Fantasy thing was off-putting for me at first because the hesitancy with the leveling caps. I don't know, Wraith, if you had heard about this fact from 1.0 days. So you could only cap a specific number of levels per week. Like it was like, and it would like, it greatly drain like what you earned. Like you'd only earn, like you still earn, but it would be such a like a small amount that you would earn in each of the classes. And so there was a lot of people who were very off put by that, because it's like, if I want to play the game for 80 hours a week, I should be able to do whatever I want and get the XP the same if I was playing it for 20 hours a week. But they wanted to worry. their worry was like what they're doing with the Savage rating, which Gibles has had a lot of great hot takes on, which is just give me the ability to get all the gear right now, right? Well, your problem is that it cuts down the time that you want to play the game.
I'm fine with gear gatekeeping. My problem, and it's a whole other thing. It's gatekeeping people from being able to play with their friends.
Right.
That's a whole thing. You haven't yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet, but
it's only problem with current Savage.
Yeah, it's only really kind of problem with current stuff. But I think for me it was the off-putting of like I don't want to like put time into this and then be told that I can't play anymore, right? I mean, that's been kind of like Yoshi's big thing is like take breaks, right? He's never been like you have to sub. What do we have to do to get you to sub for longer, right? It's always been like, hey, play the game at your own pace, and if it's not enough, for, if you've had enough, step away. Like it's gonna be here when you come back, and it's a very different mentality than a lot of people have ever had before with streaming, because it's just not a normal thing to have to deal with. But I think like for me, when the servers came down for 1.0 and then 2.0 came out, I was like, I don't know if I really want to get into this. I'm not sure they've really worked out the bugs from 1.0, or they've gotten rid of it. And then my buddy of mine, when we were like right before Heavensward, was like, no, they actually figured it all out. Like they're doing the catch-up game, which is what everybody does, which is the Rusted XP. So, park yourself in a city and you get Rusted XP while you're not online, up to 3 levels of Rusted XP, blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's when I jumped in. And so that I don't think for me, and obviously for me in Heavensward, it wasn't that big of a slog, right? Because it's just ARR and then Heavensward. But I can see from a hesitancy right now where it's like, okay, you have this really long first game, and then you have to go through 4 other expansions to be able to get to the end game, and that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, even with like from my experience, like. So with the free trial, fantastic deal, right? Like, here you go. Here's 3 expansions worth of content. Sure, there's some limitations, but ultimately, overall, good deal. My experience with free trial is Destiny, which is here's nothing. Fuck you. Give us money. Oh, you didn't give us money? Here's a screen in your face telling you to spend money in our microtransaction store. Here, buy the next X pack. Here you go. Buy. And there's so little of that in FF14, but there's a stigma around MMOs and microtransactions and maybe even like pay to win and all this sort of stuff. And I think that's just kind of not there in 14, but it's like there's just that stigma that people who haven't looked deeper into it don't know that. I think there's a lot of advertising that they could do to get more people in rather than just the free trial stuff. Honestly, they got great stuff.
Yeah, the free trial on it. I was in a friend of ours, Togami's stream the other day, and there's one of her mods was like constantly talking about trying to do 14, and she's constantly talking about which one should I buy, which one should I buy, and we were all just like, don't buy it, just do the free trial. Like if you're speeding through it, then buy it. But if you get into it and you're like, oh wow, I really want to take my time with the story, just play the story. And if you're going slow, it's gonna take you like a year to get through the freaking free trial. Right. And just enjoy it.
Oh, and I forgot to mention this. This is actually other news that I should have mentioned. The collector's editions, if you just bought the base games, the collector's editions right now are 50% off for the holiday season. So it's a good time to get those extra mounted minions and a free Fantasia for half the price. If you haven't gotten that, that's definitely a good deal. Gives you a lot when you create a character, right? So like whenever I create a character, this is always my funny part. Whenever I ever create a character, I always have to empty my mailbox of Final Fantasy stuff, of this like Square sending me crap in order to be able to get the rest of my Square crap, because I have so many envelopes that come in. And it's just like, here's this, and then this, and then this, and then this. I'm like, okay, I got it. Just
Fantasia is a scary thing.
It is. Oh, we got a raid. Hold on. Hexy. Hey, hold on. We got a Hex raid. Hold on. Going in here. Hex, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders. My name is Kula Monster Gaming. I am joined by Gibles Destruct and Wraith of the Nine. We are doing our Final Fantasy podcast today. Hex, how did your raid go? Did you guys clear?
I missed the stream. Was he doing P10?
He was doing their UCOB stuff.
Oh,
not UCOB.
okay.
I'm sorry. They were doing their they're doing T11, right? I think you're on T11. Yeah, clear T11. So they're on to T12. The Prague team is a bunch of streamers who are doing all of the raids from start to finish. So from the very beginning of ARR all the way through, they're doing them they're doing them mine, eye level, no echo.
Mm-hmm.
Podcast is going good. Welcome in. We're discussing probably Hex, a topic that you can kind of hit in on is the vampire effect of going through the Sprout story. And for those joining, please note that we are at Shadowbringers at the Ilmeg dungeon. That is our cut point for spoilers. So we kindly ask that you keep your comments related to those.
I'm trying.
They'll be extremely vague, but Wraith's going as fast as he can. He's doing a good job. We give him crap in the stream that he's a big staller, but he's doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean, I just played this story. I went fast, and it took me like a year to go through it, and I was
still a lot.
Yeah,
going back through it.
I also think that there's something to be said, kind of getting a little off topic, to not going fast, because it creates burnout, right? You don't want to burn yourself out on a story that you just rush your way through, and keeping yourself from going there and getting that far. But yeah, so the vampire effect is real. Like we said, some of us seek out our sprouts in our streams and watch out for them and see where they go. And, there'll be points in the story that everybody will be like, oh, Wraith's here. Everybody jump in. Wraith's here. Get his reaction.
Well, okay. How spicy of takes you guys want? Let me just ask you this. How spicy
as you want. Go ahead.
So I think a lot of what I've tried to do is just kind of like feel out the right, just the right enthusiasm and the right way of approaching things. Like, okay, obviously you're doing MSQ stuff. I think it's not a big secret that there are a lot of MSQ watchers, and they are rabid, right? Not only that, but just going through, and especially going through any amount of content for the first time. I don't know if you'd call that not necessarily MSQ, but even some of the side content can be considered MSQ.
Yep.
But so I'm trying to hold it in, but I'm going to talk about Alex a little bit.
Go ahead. I love the hot takes from Alex. I think it's great.
So I personally was not the biggest fan of Alex because of primarily the story, but I think a lot of the original, I guess the first two, would be turns, the first 8, especially, I guess encounters or whatever were.
For the tiers, yeah. A 1 through 4 and A5 through 8.
a bit samey, right? They're a bit samey in visuals and kind of the overall just vibe and aesthetic and everything is just a bit samey.
I do believe you were not a huge fan of the time travel as well. Mixing time travel into a game always creates bad times.
Whenever you open the door to time travel, it's just a whole can of worms. It's okay, you can't unclose that door no matter how much you try. You cannot unclose that door. And I remember from the streaming aspect side of things, I definitely lost some people because of that. Some of the people who had been there from the start, because they were very upset with my takes on that. And something that I notice a lot with, especially streaming a story and, having people especially so enthusiastic about a story that they cherish and love so much, is whenever you give some of those takes, sometimes people are going to agree with you. Sometimes people are not going to agree with you. And something that I've noticed a lot in just from being a newer streamer is sometimes I witness some feigned enthusiasm and stuff as a way of kind of making everybody happy, but not necessarily being real. Something that I always try to do is I keep it real to a fault. Alexander, I'm looking at you. It's a bit mid, but yeah, like I think it's kind of, it's like a double-edged sword with the MSQ stuff. Like that's definitely where you're going to see a lot of like people coming in to watch and engage with you and be there for the really big juicy moments, but they want to see it a certain way and not see it they want to see it the way they want to see it and not the way that you want to always like.
And I think Alex kind of hit the nail on the head there. So Alex is the first raid tier. So Heavensward is the first raid tier where the raiding was divided into a normal mode and a savage mode. So like if you look at like Hexidy's team is doing T11. They're not doing T11 Savage. They're doing T11 because that content is so difficult that it is Savage mode content. It is not as difficult as it was back then. So we always refer to the phenomenon of what currently is going on in Final Fantasy as the cup effect. So you have a cup that is filled with the raid, right? And a portion of that cup is the mechanics that you have to fight and the boss difficulty, but then another portion of that cup is the complexity of the job that you're performing, right? So in the newer fights, so this is kind of a big benefit to the newer players who didn't go through the old stuff, the rotations of the fights have become a lot easier. So the cup side of that has become smaller and smaller. But on the reverse side of that, the mechanics become harder and harder because the rotations are considered easier. They're not simplified, right? You still have to know what you're doing at any given time and be able to play well. But in regards to what they were back in ARR or Heavensward or Shadowbringers at the time, the cup kind of has been getting smaller and smaller for the difficulty of the job and larger. Yeah, and that 2-minute meta, right? So we get these lineups now that are exactly 2 minutes, right? So everybody's burst lasts and they can re-up their burst after 2 minutes. For warriors, they have a 1 minute soft burst and then they go into their big burst at 2 minutes. But for the most part, everybody laps into like this 2 minute rotation that kind of cycles itself after 2 minutes. And so it makes room for like, when do we pot? When do we throw, pots on our tinctures on top of this in order to make the fight a little bit easier or like that. But it's this cup effect. So while the content now is, I don't want to say easy because it's still difficult, right? People are doing it in Blue Mage and it's still very difficult to do on the coil stuff. But it is not as difficult as what the rotations were in ARR with ARR gear, right? You're doing min eye level, but you're doing it with an easier rotation. So you're able to kind of see these easier mechanics with an easier rotation.
We tried min eye level, no echo, synced coils in some of the coils fights. A lot of fun. Bahamut's a bitch.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll tell you, like, the one thing that is instantly going to make the first two raid tiers easier than when they were current content, and that is accuracy.
Yep.
You are now statting your gear with, while like your melds might be a little bit differently, but you're getting direct hits in now, and you're not statting in only so you can just hit the boss.
Right.
If you don't know, back in the day in A Realm Reborn and Heavensward, there was an accuracy stat. It's where your direct hit was, and it didn't matter anywhere except for Savage tier or coils because you would hit 100%. But instant you entered into those, your accuracy stat actually mattered because you could miss.
Right. But it does, I think the separation of normal and savage was a good separation in my opinion. I think it gave a lot of like good, like being able to let people enjoy the story of Alexander or the story of Omega or the story of, the future ones, without having to worry about it being this like grudgingly difficult, I can only watch it on YouTube because I don't feel like I'm good enough. But with that being said, I do just want to preface that I always believe that people are good enough to raid. If you feel like you want to raid and you want to do that, everybody can raid, and that's my mentality. Hex has heard me say it. I know Blinded's heard me say it. I know Gibles has heard me say it. I live into the mentality that if you want to raid, there are groups out there that will help you learn how to raid and do that stuff. Like, so I don't ever want to hear people say like it's not, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But I don't want to hear anybody say I can't do it because I'm not good enough, because like there are people who will be able to help you out with doing that kind of stuff. Blackmore TV, thanks for coming in, man. First time chatter. He said there are definitely people in MSQ viewer crowd who get mad if you don't have the exact same opinion or that they didn't pick the right dialogue choices, and that
Blackmore,
is 100% sure.
I mean,
yes.
You not liking Alex? Are you ready for my hot take that in the community is way hotter than your hot take?
Please.
I don't like Shadowbringers.
Oh, that's a
interesting.
Really big hot take.
I quit. It's the 2 dungeons after where you're at. I stopped playing the game.
Really?
Yeah, I bought the game, or I played it since 2.3. I went all the way through. I played it like a ton through that whole time. Got weeklies done, everything like that. Shadowbringers dropped. I leveled Gunbreaker up. I then played through the story. I got to level, what is it, 78, 68, 78. And then I quit right before the 78 dungeon. I was just I can't do this. I bounced off the story.
Lise, what were your thoughts on Lise? We got to have this talk.
Oh, I don't mind Lise.
Oh, thank God. Everyone's like,
I've seen yourself, Gibles.
We've seen a lot of Lise hate in my chat, and it's just like the most unwarranted bullshit ever. It's like, bro, did we play the same expansion? Oh, I'm sorry. This is the Lise show in all of Stormblood.
One of the other takes that I saw in a meme was that Lise is just. Oh no, yeah, Lise. I was indifferent about her. I don't know. I just.
Fine.
It felt like a throw, right? It felt like a throw. For me, it felt like a throw because it was like, well, her sister died, so okay, I guess they had to add another scion to the mix. Like, okay, like, meh.
I mean, okay.
She's still the same scion. I don't know.
I'm not going to name names, right? But I definitely saw someone's MSQ, and they were really, really, really upset about Papa Limo, right?
Oh.
Dying.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, really? I was like, oh man, that kind of sucks, I guess. We didn't really see him too much. So, well, okay. That's sad, I guess. But I think that's like one of the things about being like an MSQ streamer, especially, is like, you're trying to please everybody. So it's like, oh, there might be some, and especially if you don't know, and if you're like even if you are being authentic with not seeing spoilers and stuff, which there are some people who definitely plan ahead. I've talked to them, again, not naming names, but it's like in the pursuit of trying to please everybody, it just comes across kind of like hollow, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
There's a couple of those.
I can see that.
But yeah, like it's a, like I said, I think it's like a double-edged sword with a lot of the like with MSQ, because the other big problem is that MSQ is eventually going to run out. I'm going to like, for me especially, like I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do post MSQ? You know, do I start stalling more now that I'm getting kind of closer to the end? I'm just kidding. At any rate,
I was gonna say,
people here, I'm just kidding.
Hobbit was like, don't worry, Wraith. Don't worry.
And you become Hexy, who's obsessed with raids right now.
Raiding right now. Yeah,
nothing but raids.
We pull you into raid. We pull you into Savage raiding, get you through the Savage, the current Savage tier. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Like you